The only thing I got to do is ride it.
All of a sudden you look up and there's 18 people coming after your one little flag you're hanging.
Memorial Service and all that. But my new job,
Gee, you're Debbie after we were done. You don't have to be on council.
So how many meetings you got left, Patrick?
How did you do? Did you recover okay? Yeah, they went to lunch.
Not
Got
that
some
counting
food
down,
in
no.
her and liquids, and then they see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all they did, they took her right on the Ferris wheel, got her cotton candy, and that's all she wants to do.
I almost wore my green shirt. Good thing I didn't. Being
Yeah.
twinsies.
I said if you can do that when she's 15, 16.
Oh, okay.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't wear my green shirt.
Forestry school.
Twinsies.
Oh, cool.
But they have their own song.
Husband.
Could have been bookends.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, see that,
Rich over there.
I'm almost sure we went through that town, and I thought that, yeah, and I thought it was called Kingsford.
Yeah, Kingsford is.
Okay, all right,
And that is Kingsford, the charcoal people.
yeah,
That's where I started.
but that's Henry Ford's idea was to take all that wood that wasn't being used and make it
So my realtor, her dad.
Are you guys ready?
ready. Yes, ma'am, we are. You are, right?
All right, here we go. I'd like to call City of Ferrisburg City Council meeting to order tonight, Monday, August 5, 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hop,
Here.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Here.
Councilmember DeWitt,
Here.
Councilmember Toth,
Here.
Councilmember O'Donnell,
Here.
Councilmember Carlson,
Here.
Councilmember Blees.
Here.
At this time, I ask you to rise for the invocation given by Councilmember Toth, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help as we gather together. We pray for guidance in matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm. Give us a desire to find a way to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other to excellence. We ask that you would challenge each other to reach higher and further, to be the best that we can be. We ask this in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Moving down to item number 5, public comments. At this time on the agenda is for any citizen to give a direct, brief comments or questions to the City Council. Time for public comments will be given when an agenda item is discussed. If you have a comment or question, please raise your hand to be recognized by the mayor. After being recognized by the mayor, please stand, give your name and address for the record, and proceed with your comment or question. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments at this time? Yes, sir.
Marcus Joseph, 16858 Cecilia Lane, Spring Lake, Michigan. I'm just going to make just a little comment about the bridge. The only reason I'm going to talk is I know a lot of you guys personally. I know a lot of you guys through businesses. And I feel as a citizen, you know, if you don't really express your opinion and you don't bring it out in the open and something like this, and you know, you really shouldn't bring it out in private either. So a lot of that is just based on our personal relationships and business relationships. But I agree with the second opinion on the bridge. As far as the engineer's report, I'm sure the citizens of Ferrisburg will be informed. I don't know if it's done yet, but I know it's being done. A couple of points here, in my opinion. I think both engineer reports should recommend either leaving the bridge open or closing it. I really don't feel as a citizen, unless you are an engineer and you've gone to engineering school, that the city council should make a decision on closing the bridge unless the engineers, both of them, or 3 of them, or 4, whatever we need to do to make it a fair opinion, recommend closing the bridge or leaving it open. Once that decision's made, I think there should be 3 bids, minimum. Once those 3 bids are finalized, in between the opinions of the engineers and the 3 bids, I think we need to work on the grants. And there were people, citizens last week or 2 weeks ago, that recommended councils and sub-councils to work on grants and raising money once we know the 3 bids. And you work on the grants, and then you decide at that point, when you're ready to put the millage on the ballot, you decide at that point how much money you need. Instead of just throwing out 13 million at 4 mills, do we need 8 million? Do we need 6? Do we need 20? And we need to figure out what the millage would be at that point, so it goes on the ballot next year, whatever the city council decides. But I think we need to get the 2 engineer reports. They need to suggest closing it or opening it. 3 bids, work on the grants, and then you will know a dollar amount, because I think we rushed it 2 weeks ago, and I think that was pretty evident, throwing out 13 million at 4 mills, and we don't know. We don't know what that number is going to be. And then one last comment is the motorized vehicles. I've seen mopeds, little motorcycles. I have no problem with that. I think we need to really look at that, because if you got 35 or 40 bikes going over in a group, and there's 200 or 300 pound people on each bike, and then you got a little girl coming across in a little shorts and a little moped, I mean, I think it should be a weight limit, if it's 100 pounds, if it's 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, but I think the motorized thing might just need to be looked at a little bit. Stop wasting police force's time and efforts for a moped. That's my comments. And again, I just wanted to do this because, again, I know everybody personally and through a business, and I think everybody needs to be just upfront. And I'm going to put faith in the council that they are really taking their due diligence, and let's time this thing out, take our time, and when we put it on the ballot next year, we got the right numbers to work with. That's it. Thanks.
For public comments. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Royce, 17700 Navajo Drive. I have a couple issues here. First of all, are we on the Coast Guard board for the city of Ferrysburg? I really think that next year we really need to talk about what the beach looks like during Coast Guard. I was down there several times and I was completely embarrassed by the amount of trash, weeds, and stuff that were in the state park and along the shoreline. I know that that's state run, but this is the city of Grand Haven, Ferrysburg, and whoever is in there. And I've had many comments and saying how gross it was. They're going to Muskegon. I don't care if it's Coast Guard. So it's a reflection on all of us when that beach, I own a home in Florida, they get out the rakes, they clean it up. When we have a festival like that, we should have pride in our communities. I own property in Grand Haven, I pay a lot of taxes, that should have been cleaned up. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I am devastated by the mass shootings. I know all of us are. I know most people here are on the Republican Party because you ran for the Republican Party and you got your seats. We need to do something.
This is nonpartisan, so it's not a Republican or Democratic
Well, you guys
seat.
run that way when you get your seats, but I'm just saying, we need to do something. There's legislation that's sitting, waiting to go to the Senate. You're a mayor. I would hate to see the mayor of El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. It could be you doing what's going on right now, and it's horrible. These are the mass shootings that have happened this year in the United States. Okay? This is horrible. There's legislation that has passed the House that needs to go through. We need to all speak up and say enough is enough. I went to Parkland. I was down in a march myself. This has got to stop. We all have to stand up and we have to speak out. There's been 248 mass shootings, and then you add the 2 more from the other day. This is just got to stop. Mitch McConnell is one man, and he's holding legislation that needs to be voted on in the Senate. We all need to get our responsible people in there and get it out. This needs to stop. Something has to be done, and we're all responsible. My daughter moved to Ireland. I miss her deeply, and today I'm thankful that she's not here, because I don't have to worry about that, because Ireland stopped the madness when they had won. We need to do something, and it needs to stop. Our leaders need to speak out for our communities and stop this. Thank you.
My name is Jerry DeWitt, 16979 Royal Avenue. I would like to request that the city of Ferrisburg, and I've talked to Craig about it, I've talked to a couple of the council members, so you probably know what I'm going to bring up, and that's the stop sign on the end of Pine Street by the Citgo gas station. I'd like to request that you switch or the stop sign on Ridge, take the one off Ridge and put it on Pine Street. There's no longer any traffic on Pine Street. And Ridge, you know, for all the years I can remember as a kid, that was US 31. This is US 31 here. And there was never a stop sign. There was just a curve into Grand Haven. So I'd like to ask the city of Ferrisburg to really consider that. You know, we have the charter school over there by Scott's house, and there's a lot of traffic that goes through there, and Scott knows that. He probably can't even get out of his driveway half the time. But I would like to have you folks consider that. Take the stop sign off of Ridge and just simply move it over to Pine Street. And actually, it was there for years. All my years of growing up, it was always on Pine Street. So please consider that. I think it'd be a good move for Ferrisburg to now have that open run. Thank you.
Time. Okay, hearing none, we'll move down to item 6, consideration of approval of consent agenda. A, approve the July 15, 2019 City Council meeting minutes as printed. B, adopt the proposed resolution regarding leasing a portion of the premise of 17290 Roosevelt Road to Walden Green Montessori.
So moved.
Support.
There's a motion support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Moving down to item number 7, new business. A, discussion take action, if appropriate, to adopt a resolution to place a ballot proposal to amend the city charter to read, the composition of members of council excluding the mayor shall be $1,000 per year. The mayor shall receive $1,250 per year. Such compensations shall be paid quarterly and except and otherwise provided in this charter shall constitute only compensation which shall be paid to the mayor or councilman for the discharge of any services for or on behalf of the city during their tenure in office. The city council may not change the compensation provided in this section. The mayor and councilman may, upon the order of the council, be reimbursed for necessary expenses incurred on behalf of the city and to submit a ballot proposal to the city voters at the November 5, 2019 general election. And at this time, this would be a roll call vote taken. So we need a motion and support.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Okay, motion support. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Kennedy? You never know what I'm doing.
I know, yes.
Councilmember Carlson?
Yes.
Councilmember Blees?
Yes.
Councilmember Twa?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
No.
Councilmember DeWitt?
Yes.
Mayor Hop? Motion passed.
Moving down to item 7B, discussion and take action, if appropriate, to adopt the ordinance number 308 in the ordinance to amend the city code by amending chapter 154 zoning to amend the section 2.20 definitions and section 9.150 schedule of the district standards.
Your Honor, I move
Yes.
that we adopt the ordinance number 308, an ordinance to amend the city code by amending chapter 154 zoning to amend section 2.20 definitions and sections 9.150 schedule and district standards.
Support.
Motion support. Further discussion on this? Would you like to speak on behalf of this item, sir?
Ben Ainsworth, 19143 North Shore Road. Before you are a petition with 115 signatures prohibiting building a three-story home at 190125 North Shore. This was rejected at the 628 zoning commission, stating ordinance 265, rule 6, states single-family dwellings not to exceed 2.5 stories. July 2nd, the commission authorized construction of a home, of a house dwelling, as long as it did not exceed 35 feet. Second petition I have here with 94 signatures. By the way, 5 of those signatures are people that have sat in those seats from as far back as Maple Street. One of them by the ex-mayor of Grand Haven. Second petition is 94 citizens state they support ordinance 154, requesting no changes or variances. The 2.5 story, chapter 154, section 220, remain as taxed. Being present at the July 2nd Planning Commission meeting, I felt there was very little thought and discussion given to the quite a serious and important issue. Allowing a change in ordinance would open up a large can of worms. Think of what could happen. Homes could be built with T-roofs, T-tops, cylinders, pyramids, half a floor. I know this sounds far-fetched. However, there are all kinds of people out there. The above could be a major headache for all three committees. It lead into overtime meetings. Really had no problem securing these signatures. 204 signings. Some people grabbed me by the hand, thanked me, grabbed the petition form right out of my hand. People from Spring Lake wanted to sign it. Of course, I couldn't let them, but they're interested in wanting to stabilize it. A lot of stuff to go from big building, huge house class building. One gentleman said 3-story buildings belong downtown the street, in the neighborhood. 3-story is a building, not a home. It's a building. Where a building? Obstructing the view of people across the street. Some long-time residents wanted me to convey that you are forgetting them and not giving consideration when granting permits. One lady, by the way, she lives over by you, Rebecca, says her view has been cut and affected her septic system. I and 208 Perrysburg citizens more. I mean, I'm 90 years old. I can't. I'd like to. I could have got more. Appreciate not amending ordinance 305, chapter 154, section 220, section 150. Thank you.
Any other additional public comments regarding this? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Gary Good, 18981 North Shore, just I guess a few doors down the street from the proposed house. I would agree with Ben that there's an issue here, but the issue isn't this issue. The issue is the setback from the lake to the house, where we've got houses being built that are obstructing views from their neighbors. It's an issue for a different day, I understand that. I would like to say that the simplification that I see with these changes, where we're taking the conflict of the height measurement as opposed to a 2.5 stories, is a great simplification. It really isn't a change, it's just a simplification and a clarification. I'm in favor of that, so thank you.
Evening, my name is Greg Gedwat. I live at 19022 North Shore Drive. I also own 19025 North Shore Drive, the property that Mr. Ainsworth has brought up. I think, though, it's important that we realize tonight's not about, my property or what I'm trying to do on it. I brought it to the zoning board and it was declined, which I completely understand. I think they did what they were supposed to do. But, as you can imagine, some of you starting to recognize me a little bit. I've been to a couple planning commission meetings now and that zoning board commission meeting as well. And the conversations that occur at those meetings and have occurred, it's interesting because at no point has anyone ever been able to, number one, tell me when this particular ordinance came on the books, and number two, and probably more importantly, why it's on the books. And I bring that up because with further conversation around this particular issue, many people have said what Mr. Ainsworth has said, which is it's there to preserve the view for people that don't live on the beach. So those that live across the street, those that live up the dune behind it. And what I'm confused about is I don't see how this particular ordinance does anything to actually preserve that view. As you all know, there is another ordinance, 35-foot height restriction, that does that. The interesting thing is, as it stands right now, I could build a house with a peaked roof that could go all the way to 42.5 feet. So this does absolutely nothing to protect that view. I think, the key here is you could say anybody could build a house that's, let's say, 5 stories tall, but under the 35-foot restriction. But why wouldn't I do that? I wouldn't do that because there's no way I could sell that house in the future. Who would buy a house with 6.5-foot ceilings? So there is a certain reasonableness that comes along with this. If you have the height restriction, it doesn't matter how many stories it is. People will create a house that's appropriate for the community and is something that will have resale value as well. I understand what Ben says about anybody can come in and build a pyramid, but I don't know if they're going to be able to sell that down the road. And that plays a role in what people build, especially on the lake shore as well. So I think the key for tonight is it's up to you to determine, is there still value to this ordinance being on the books? Or number one, was there ever any value at all to it? I still can't see that value. Or is it time to retire this, knowing that there is ample safeguard in place, particularly with the 35-foot height restriction, so that we won't have that Armageddon, so to speak, that Ben talks about, of having monstrosities all along the lake shore going forward. I very much am in favor of making sure that homes fit a neighborhood. They can look a lot different. They don't have to all have a roof. Many of them do. There are lots of monstrosities that have roofs as well. But for the most part, I think we can still have that same reasonableness without having this ordinance continue on the book. So thank you very much.
Well, people speaking on behalf of this. Oh, yes?
Lisa Menerick, 18974 North Shore Drive. I was on the zoning board when we redid and revamped the entire requirements, and a lot had to do with the height on North Shore because of the height of the fire trucks and the ladder. That was our most tantamount decision. The second thing was we didn't want screaming eagles. We wanted to be able to see the beautiful lake. And these people that come into our municipality and assume that they can build whatever they want and out as far as they want, out on North Shore, they do not own the land to the water. That is all part of subdivision Beach A, Beach B, and Beach C as you go down. We had a height requirement, and we followed it to the law. We think 2.5 floors is perfect. That's fine. But once you go above that, you're asking for a weight on sand. Some of the houses have had terrible cracks, have had to be redone where the foundation had to be redone because of the height and the weight on the sand dune itself. We would prefer you not to, and not do an elective zoning for this property. We would prefer you to keep the zoning that's in place. Thank you. Jim, is there anything else?
I'm Jim Manrick, 18974 North Shore. Actually, I think when we built our house in 95, I don't think there was a height restriction. We built it 2 levels plus a walkout. I don't think there was a height restriction, but I do think height restriction is important. Part of it's like Lisa said about the fire department. The other thing, we just don't teach 10-story building. We need to have a nice view for people. Let's have a point about weight. Sand is a decent substrate, but still you get cracks. That's the rule. It's been that way for, I don't know, something like that. And I don't see any particular reason to change it. It served us well for a couple decades or so. Make it serve us well going forward. Now, if there's a particular, what's the right word? No, for something.
Oh, if there's been, I guess, when you go up in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my understanding is you have a hardship.
Yeah, hardship.
And the hardship that you would have, I don't see a hardship with this property whatsoever.
You know, if you had a hardship, sure, there's reasons to change things because of that, but just wanting 3 levels, hardship. Want something that's out of compliance. And sorry, now if there was a hardship and the hardship, that's where.
The other thing that I'd like to bring up to the council, I know Mayor Hopp, we had talked about this at one time, is about everybody in the city of Ferrysburg. We have various, you know, in like in New Orleans, they have special zoning in that city itself. And they're called not districts, but they're called something to that effect. I know that we had talked about at one time the representation that we have from North Shore and Piney and all of the other little inlet roads that come off of North Shore Beach for representation on council. I think if you've lived out in our area.
Ms. Metrick, I'm going to
Yes.
stop you right now.
Sure.
Is this dealing with selecting people for council, or is this dealing with the agenda item? Because if this is something more, I'll have you come back up during public
No.
comment at the end.
That's fine, but representation from our group would be appreciated as well, and thank you for the time. Thank you.
Certainly. Okay. Any additional public comments? Okay, hearing none, there's a motion on the table, motion support. So at this time, all those in favor stating.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Couple questions. Just clarification, and Pat can probably help out with this. My understanding is that a definition of a story is approximately 10 feet. Is that correct, Pat?
Correct.
On the average?
Yeah, a little less
Okay.
for an average house.
So I have been in several of the houses out here along the lake shore and other places where I've walked in and great big huge open area, 20 feet up. So it's not changing the overall height of the structure. It's just removing that definition so people can, if people want to have 5 stories, they're going to have 7-foot ceilings. So this just kind of is a clarification. There's also, you're worried about, we have a person that expressed worry about having flat roofs and pyramids and other stuff. There are references in this ordinance that talk about acceptable styles of roofs. Right in the part here, gables, hips, gambrel. I'm not sure what all these different definitions are, but they would have to, if they're going to want a variance, they're going to have to request that. But they still have to stick at that 35-foot height. And there are going to have to be some other changes. So I just wanted to kind of clarify what a floor is. We're not changing the height of the building, just taking out this part.
As a rep on the zoning board, we've had to turn down 2 projects in the last 4 or 5 years, 3 years, whatever. To suggest that this is a special circumstance for this particular client or this particular homeowner is not accurate. And it's been discussed. The planning commission has made a recommendation that we allow, it's at 2.5 stories. It's ambiguous in there in the code. The overall height restriction would be the same. So I take exception at the fact that some people have suggested that this is for this particular piece of property. It's not. We've turned it down at least twice, maybe 3 times in different parts of the city where that's the overall restriction. The height restriction is perfectly adequate. And that's what the planning commission recommended to us. And as a zoning board rep, that's what I'm recommending to the council also. Just to clarify that, this is not for this particular person or piece of property.
Any additional comments, questions? Okay. All those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Moving down to 7C, discussion take action if appropriate to place on the September 3rd City Council agenda consideration to adopt a proposed resolution regarding selling parcel numbers 70-03 16 326 029 and 70-03 16 179 015 and 70-03 15 16 179 019, city-owned Verplank parcels, which resolution shall remain on file with the city clerk for not less than 15 days prior to the consideration for the city council, and that a summary of the minutes of the August 5, 2019 meeting of the city council be published in the Grand Haven Tribune.
I'll make a motion to support.
Okay.
Support.
Motion support. Any further discussion regarding this?
Just a quick thing. We had the property appraised at $67,000, and that is the offer for the property.
That's correct.
Okay. The other question I have: should we put that money into the bridge fund?
That would be a city council decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I have some concerns about the sale of this property at this time. We're not in any financial dire straits, so it's nothing critical that we sell it right now for the money. There's a safety concern. This is going to for storage. Storage units typically don't grow in value. It doesn't create jobs. And really doesn't have a benefit to this community, and I would like to see us wait and hopefully get somebody in here that would bring a business, possibly jobs to the area. Safety concern, after discussing this with the fire chief, and I agree with him that the, because of, this is a storage facility and they can store anything in there, from something as innocent as a valued rock collection to something as serious as a meth lab or something, you know, something extremely serious. And the owner is not willing to go beyond the code and put in extra safeguards. And this is also closer to a residential area than the other storage areas. And if there was something in there that was highly volatile, we might have an issue. I'd like to see us just wait on this till some further time and send it back out for bids.
Couple things. The building code requires it be built to the code, to standards. To request something beyond that, I don't know if it's even legal, let alone, I mean, it would be perhaps beneficial to the city, but he's under no obligation to make it past the city code. Number one. Number two, we've padded on we've advertised it several times, several different papers. I don't recall where all it was advertised. We had one response. The city has absolutely no use for that property. Fire chief, public works, nobody has any foreseeable use for it in the future. I think it's just time to let it go. We've had a fair offer. While it's true we're not in dire financial straits, why are we keeping it if we don't need it? Yeah. I mean, Craig, do you see any foreseeable future use for it for the city?
No, we do not.
So let's just get rid of it.
Any other feedback, comments, concerns?
Well, just to clarify, I'm not saying that you know we have to force somebody to do something beyond the code. It's just that it would be nice if they did. Citgo Terminal went way beyond what, if they built their terminal to code, we'd be in pretty serious shape right now. They went beyond, above and beyond what was required of our local code. And I'm not asking them to, that we say we require it. I'm just saying that it would be nice if that happened, and I just express my safety concerns about this. Yes.
Don't know what people are gonna put in there. If it did catch fire, would the fire department go out there? I mean,
well, yeah,
you'd respond to it, but is there something that we might not be able to put out, or?
Certainly, there's always things that's just one of the unknowns that we get into, especially with storage. But if this was a business of plumbing or electrical, even a chemical business, there's a chemical business, there is the right to know, and they have to have an inventory of what's in there. And so we know what we're dealing with, and allows us to
fighter. Yeah, you don't know what's in those storage units. You don't know what you're fighting. You have to kind of come out there with everything, I guess. That's a good point.
But he currently owns additional storage.
Develop other storage units in the city, yes.
Everything Councilmember O'Donnell said could be said about each and every one of our houses in any one of our neighborhoods. We don't know what's being stored in anybody's shed. We don't know what's being stored in anybody's basement. And the realities are those buildings are going to be all steel. And there's not a whole lot of burnable in there except for what's being stored in there, which is no different than everybody else's house. So I find your concerns, although valid, they're valid for every house, every building in this neighborhood, so, or in this city, so that's all I have.
Step up to the podium, please.
Lisa Menerick, 18974 North Shore. Where is this property located exactly? Is it on the side of the Verplank, contingent with 31?
Closer to, oh, go ahead.
Is it the leaf collection basin?
It's a parcel between 3rd and 2nd Street on the west side of Verplank Street.
Craig, I'm asking you this question because you've been kept up more informed perhaps, or any council member. When they talked about redoing the bridge at one time, would any of this property be part of that parcel that the government would like to own?
And drawings I have seen, no.
No. Because it's really important to get a good appraisal of the property, such as an MAI, who would have not just a bank appraiser do this property, but more of a commercial property from what Kathleen mentioned. I'm just saying that if this valuation of this property would accelerate due to the bridge, then that would be something that we, the city, would probably want to hold on to. But again, if it's of no purpose for the city on the tax rolls, we would rather have somebody else pay the taxes. I totally understand that. Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving down to 7D. Discussion, take action if appropriate to approve an agreement between the City of Ferrisburg and the County of Ottawa for the Sheriff's Services. There is additional information in our packet that described that there was, grab it. They would continue, Ottawa County Office will continue to cover the administration cost, such as detective services, canine services, etc. Our attorney has reviewed and has no concerns with this new agreement. The only changes would be currently Spring Lake Village and Ferrisburg have a joint agreement with the Sheriff's Services. With the revised agreement with the city, will have an individual agreement with the Sheriff's Services, as will the village. And the second change is at the beginning of the county's fiscal year, October 1, the city will be billed in advance. So.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the City of Ferrisburg and the County of Ottawa for Sheriff's Services.
Support.
Okay, motion support. Further discussion?
Quick question. Craig, the contract is $518,000. What was it last year?
It was
It
right
was-
around 508.
So there's a slight increase, 10,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I
And
need.
every year there'll be an increase in the budget.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What other changes besides the fact that we're busting up the contract between the two municipalities? Is there any other changes? And why is it busted up into the two municipalities?
The sheriff's agreement was reviewing all their agreements with every unit that they contract with. And what they're trying to do is, they had 17 contracts, and they were getting concerns that the way they billed was on the previous month's actual expenses. And so some months there was a spike in the billing, and the other months there was slow up and down. So what they're trying to do is do an average of the budgeting, and so that everybody pays the same amount every month. So that's what started all this revisions, and why they're revising the agreement. They just give the village and the City of Ferrisburg an individual agreement. So the village agreements is basically the same thing as we have here.
They're gonna have the same amount of cars on the road and officers on patrol and.
That's correct. We're contracting for 7 deputies and 1 sergeant.
I'm just surprised that this cost of service hasn't risen that much.
and we're still gonna get the same level of service.
The sheriff's department is pretty frugal when they come to expenses around here.
Services will remain as is, and there's just those two slight changes that were made. So there's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Moving down to 7D, 7E. Discussion, take action if appropriate to approve the mayor's appointment of Mayor Pro Tem O'Donnell and Councilmember Kennedy to the ad hoc for the city manager's evaluation committee.
Motion approved.
Support.
Motion support. Any further discussion? Yep,
I was just gonna ask, Your Honor, who did it last time?
it was
I believe I did.
Mike and Pat. You did it also last year? I was gonna say, because we tried to go through a rotating schedule, and that was it. Just basically, you're doing the clerical work of gathering information and tallying it up. So, make sure, with that being said, in your packet was the manager's evaluation. Make sure that that gets completed and returned back. So, okay. So, motion support. All those in favor stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving down to 7F. Discussion, take action if appropriate to schedule a work session as a regular agenda item on the August 19 schedule. Do you have things for the schedule?
At this time, I have no topics.
You have nothing. Does anyone else have anything? Hold on.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I had sent an email off to Craig requesting that change that the citizen had spoke up about with changing the stop sign over at Citgo. And I don't know if that would be appropriate for us to discuss at a work session, or if we should just make it a agenda item for next time, or what would be. I'd like to push that forward.
So how does council feel with putting that on a work session for October 19? Reviewing the stop sign? Okay.
But while we're on that, should we switch the stop sign on West Spring Lake Road and Virginia, take it off Virginia and put it on West Spring Lake Road? Just food for thought.
Well, we could review.
Because it's less traffic coming out of those off Lakeview.
Correct.
You know, so if you made, you know what I'm saying, when they're going east, if they could go without stopping.
Right.
Craig, Your Honor. Craig, could we have a report from Sergeant Kick? Apparently, he's not in favor of that. I would like to know why.
Okay, we can get that from.
Or have him here. I'd like to hear it personally.
Two items. They do. They're out there. So we have two items? Or one item, but two sub? Perfect, yes.
Another thing that's come to my attention that a citizen brought up to me, what kind of procedure do we have to go to get a flashing light on Van Wagner and 168th? Like red flashing both ways, is that a major catastrophe as far as the state's concerned?
See the intersection.
Well,
168th and Van Wagner?
Yes, there's been several people told me they almost got T-boned there. People are trying, you know, because with the bridge closed, they're trying to hurry to get to work and running a stop sign. Maybe people don't realize that there's a stop there, but always. That's something we could look at and discuss maybe at the work session. Run that by Kick too, if you would. Or maybe Matt, Public Works. I know there was a real bad accident there not too long ago.
There's been multiple accidents over the last years at that intersection.
I've seen 3 people get killed on that corner, so I've been there a lot longer than you guys have.
That's true. I almost got T-boned last week there. People are not, they're coming down off that hill and they're not stopping. Blowing through the stop sign.
Most of the concern I've heard is people coming from either from down Van Wagner or down West Spring Lake and running it going toward the highway. Yeah, so let's look into that and see if we can't get that a little safer there.
Some of the stuff we might need an expert on, so I think I would like to touch base with our traffic engineer, our professional traffic engineer, and get his comments and bring that to the work session at the next meeting.
And could we get history of the accidents over the last 5 years there from the Sheriff's Department?
Would they have the records from the Spring Lake Ferrisburg Police Department? I know I've personally seen 4 people get killed there over the last 40 years.
Moving on.
Well, the city council approved a motion to do the Pantons, and so I'm working on the application right now. I'm not sure if you want a status update or.
Seven G, the work session for the City Hall property. And I understand Councilmember Twa, you have done some work on this one.
Yes, I have. Having taken a walk behind the building at July 4th Mayor's breakfast, I took some photos of the area back there. This is actually rented to, or one of our leasees utilizes this area. It's actually part of the old playground. And the area back there looks third worldish. Concrete is broken on the walkways. Weeds were horribly high. I don't know if they've been addressed by Department of Public Works or not, but this is an area that we actually receive rent for. And quite frankly, I'm a lot embarrassed by the condition back there. And I asked Craig if there were monies available to possibly address at least the most critical issues back there. I mean, you can see the air conditioners being held up by a child's basketball backstop. The screens are out, they're ripped. There's landscape tools that are left back there. This is really, we should be ashamed of this, that we're actually allowing people to utilize this as well. I'd like to see something happen. I mean, lawns put in, concrete at least repaired, if not removed, and grass put in where it is. Sand actually in the sandbox, if we're allowing the kids to utilize this, let's put on a better face here. This is really something I think we need to address.
It's back there also, taking care of the trees and seeing the back of it. But thank you for bringing this to light, and photos tell 1,000 words right there.
Greg, I asked at that particular time if we had monies available for making any repairs back there, or at least throwing in some lawn and possibly sprinkling for that lawn. Can you tell us what we have available?
There was $20,000 budgeted for improvements here at the City Hall property.
Okay, and so far then that money has not been directed towards anything?
That's correct.
Okay, I'd like to see what we can do with that $20,000 back there and make this a little bit better. My kids went to school here, and that playground area was certainly a lot better looking when there were a lot more students. So what's the process here? We got to form a committee? Do we got to get some bids on what we want? Do we got to hire an architect to tell us this is what we ought to do?
I think we just need to direct our DPW to, one of their, to go out there and clean up what they can and look into getting sand for the, how much it would cost to get sand for the sandbox. Those weeds, a lot of that can be pulled or, taken care of.
That last photo, the concrete area is broken and it's actually difficult to walk on. And there you can see where the sidewalk was to the right. I'm wondering if it's worth our while to just tear that broken concrete out of there, plant grass in there, and utilize the sidewalk as it was. Back in the day when that was done, this was a school, and there was a lot of children traffic. The kids that are using it now are smaller, much fewer, and they utilize the lower level almost exclusively. I think there needs to be a plan. I think there needs to be discussions on this, whether it's a committee to go over these things or if it's just a conversation with Department of Public Works. I still think we need some kind of a plan.
What I'd like to do is touch base with the daycare operator and get his feedback on what the areas they utilize. And, do they utilize this area at all or not? Or would they just prefer to have grass in there? Get some feedback from him. Then maybe once we get the feedback from him, we can talk to a landscaping company and come up with some kind of site plan. Is there any interest in doing anything else here on City Hall property on the north or the south?
Those trees on the north side, those seem to be taking root well. Then on the other side, the DPW were out there, and I know taking care of a lot of the weeds that were growing in like the old basketball court area or something, so. But I think if we did something, are there students or kids that come over and use that basketball court during the day, like during the summer or anything, or is it just kind of like just vacant?
We took the backboards down because there were so many cracks in that asphalt. We didn't want anybody getting injured.
Okay.
But there's no other, what I'm asking, I guess, is there's no other irrigation in this property. Is there interest in putting irrigation anywhere else while someone's doing the work here? Or are we just gonna concentrate on this area back here?
Greg, my thought is that perhaps you could meet with Matt, look at this. I see if we get a landscape company involved, we could be way over 20,000. Public Works is certainly capable of knocking that cement out and hauling it away, cleaning up a lot of that weeds and such what, and then maybe meet with the daycare and see what beyond that what they would like.
To remove the concrete, what are you gonna put there? Just leave it with dirt, or?
Well, you could put bark chips in there, or you could put dirt in there and then plant the grass seed. That's a, Pat and I were both walking out there at the 4th of July mayor's dinner, and you can't hardly walk there without tripping. We can't have that with kids back there. Pat's right, this is a dangerous situation. It needs to be addressed, and soon.
I think the first step would be discuss with the daycare, see what his needs are, where the children are, and then we can look at that, maybe circle back around with some ideas or suggestions, and we could add that onto the next work session too. Just keep this
There
in
by that
conversation.
sandbox, it's all like weeds, on the other side. That's terrible to have children on that. Look at that. I mean, I wouldn't want my 3-year-old. I'm sorry, no, it's bleh.
One other thing we could look at is, we got a list of stuff to do, we could also look at, maybe contacting out of the county, having to do community service, come out here and do some of the cleanup. That would help with those hours, that wouldn't cost us anything.
Well, I think we should formulate some kind of a plan on one, we know what we have to spend. Two, where should we spend it? And certainly, it would certainly look better to future lessees who might want to rent some of the building and utilize this back here. Plus, I think we can utilize it for other things as well. If it looks nicer than this, I just think it makes us look bad. And I believe there's some trees too. We got a tree down back there as well, don't we? And aren't some of those trees dying?
Working on removing the one tree that fell over. We're getting some quotes to get some tree removal done in the city, and part of the trees that have topped over will be addressed at that time. I've always kind of thought, you know, when you come around Ridge and Roosevelt there, it's hard to see City Hall building with all the trees in there. You know, I hate to cut down trees, but, you know, it's pretty thick in there and you don't see much.
I think if we address the health of the trees, I've got those trees in the front of my property, and they've been dying every year. I think if they're diseased, we can sort through those, take those out as well, and take out any hazards, obviously, and open it up. But yeah, I'd be willing to be part of those conversations if it's necessary, and I'd like to proceed with those said conversations.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I'm definitely concerned about that AC unit being held up by the little Tykes basketball unit. Don't all these rooms, Craig, have mini splits in them? So that's why they have the window air conditioner?
Right.
In a daycare where that potentially could be an egress window? But this doesn't make any sense.
That daycare was in here before City Hall was, and they were responsible for doing any air conditioning, and that's what they chose, and we've never done anything with it.
Well, just the liability too, if the thing falls because it's being held up by a little Tykes basketball, it's just not good.
Trashy. I mean, for the city to own something like that, it's trashy.
Look at potentially, does that room need to be air conditioned, and do we need to put a mini split in there?
City wants us to spend that, have that cost. Well, you're talking probably $3,000 for a mini split, one of these mini splits here.
Oh,
Well, it looked better than that, hanging out the
Well,
window.
is it an egress window? I don't know. Mr. O'Donnell? Any thoughts?
Rooms probably have several windows that would open.
Okay.
So if you've eliminated one, there would need to be.
Right,
And there's-
doors and
There's
windows.
doors.
Okay.
Right there.
Well,
Each of the classrooms have exterior doors. Yes.
The other issues, I guess, with that particular unit is security. Not hard to pull out a unit like that if people want to get in. I just see it as a weak spot in any of our security as well. So maybe we ought to be looking at the expense of a mini split to secure the building a little bit better than it is. Granted, you can break the window and get in next to it, but
I would have to look, but there might be 2 more window units on the north side of the building. Because they rent the 2 classrooms over here too.
That, we obviously didn't put that in there. The daycare did it. Make them put it in there to a secure method. That's crap. They just stuck in the window and hoped. Make them put it in there to the building inspector's specifications. That's simple enough. They did it, they can fix it.
Don't they have to be inspected yearly by, the state has to license them on a yearly basis or so?
They come in and get inspected every so often.
Sure, they never looked at that.
May not have been it. It's a summer unit.
Yeah. I would say that we should they put it in there, they should bring it up to standards. Period. I mean, I don't see where the city should be responsible for their mistakes. They rented it with no air conditioning, then they stuck this in there. That's what happened. If they want to have the city air condition it, the rent's gotta go up to reflect that, in my mind. You know.
So there's a few points to cover that.
Yep. Start building this, what they did do.
Okay, Councilmember,
I was thinking, well, it'd be nice to form a committee, but we already have a committee in place. Down to it, our beautification. Well, that's what it is, it's beautification, it's getting, and,
Making it.
yeah. I'm not talking, the air conditioning, that's a separate issue, but.
Yeah, landscape.
But the landscaping, that I think you come up with the priority lists, we present it to the beautification committee, and they work on getting it done.
They do.
Yeah, that's the thing, they're really busy, you guys. I don't know if they
Absolutely, they
could
do a
handle
wonderful
another
job.
we're
thing.
gonna keep everyone safe in this conversation, and so.
I think our best option is to have Matt and Craig look at it, come up with a plan and present it at the work session.
Well, that was after you speak with.
We'll have some more information for you at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Fort Bryant, 17620 Bayberry Drive. I like the suggestion of the landscape company. Let's get an overall price and scope on this project. It's Ferrisburg City Hall. We gotta make this look great. We should be very proud of this building. And that looks terrible. And I think underground sprinkling is due just to keep everything green around here. And as far as the DPW doing some of that, they're perfectly capable, but if they're doing that, they're not doing something else. There's limited hours in the day that they can participate in some of these events. So that's a reality check. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Beautification committee takes care of the beautification, so they take care of all the hanging baskets that you see out front. They also do the 4th of July. They also do the Halloween party for the children, and then the carols sing. I don't know if they could put on one more thing. A lot of them are in their 80s.
Would they?
And I just can't see.
But at this point, if we just gather information.
But I would say, yeah, gather information. If they could get help, it would fall under that umbrella, beautification.
Would they be interested in being part of the conversation?
They're always open to it, but
I think
that's a lot of work.
Well, yeah,
For the
and I
people that
certainly
are
don't.
on there doing that.
I wouldn't expect the beautification committee to be busting up concrete but to take a look at the size and scope of the project, what recommendations would they make, and pass them on to DPW and Craig.
They're full of ideas, but
Well,
backbreaking labor.
And there's a way to do this,
Mhm.
and I think that this is the first step in figuring out what that is. Is $20,000 gonna do it? Probably not. But if we take it piecemeal and do it right, I think that would be something that people might want to use, other than our daycare center. I mean, it's a beautiful spot back there if it were addressed and kept up.
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Benerick, 18974 North Shore Drive. I received a $3,000 Silicon Community Foundation grant for our school to do gardening. I could very easily see if you also want to use this, Patrick, for the community as well. In other words, they could lock up what they want put away, but it could also be used in the community as a playground. And who's to say how we build it? It could be fabulous. And it's been an eyesore as you drive past, for sure. The units that I have in my classroom are these. They put these units in. I noticed there was one in a previous picture on the ground. And to me, that's easy to lift and take, just as this one would be easy to break into as well. I think it sounds like a great idea to have a sandbox, and get this property back up, because it's something really to be proud of. And I'd be willing to help if there's anything that you need help with. Thank you.
William Montgomery, 17525 Bridge. I would like to ask, so thank you for bringing this up, because my daughter actually goes to this daycare, so it's been a pet peeve of mine for a while, but I would suggest that we talk to the gardeners too. If we're gonna do irrigation around here, maybe we can bring it out to the community garden as well, because we drag a hose all the way from City Hall all the way out there, and people drive over it, and just could be better. Thank you.
Moving down to our second work session, it's going to be on security cameras. In your packet, you had some information that Craig provided us with the recent vandalism on the bridge and also the barrels being stolen on the south end. I think these are things that need to be looked at, concern. So
I sent it in an email to Craig to look at maybe security cameras on our property. I know in Sunnyside Park, we don't have the drinking fountain there anymore because of the vandalism. Coast Guard Park has also had vandalism done to it as well. Other cities do it. They have security cameras all over the place. If minors are doing it, parents are responsible to pay for it.
Include the graffiti on the retaining walls south of the bridge.
I would say yes. Put them in all of the parks that we have. Because if people are throwing trash in our parks, wherever that may be, doing their shenanigans at night, you don't take apart the drinking fountain during the day. I know we put lights out there. It hasn't done any good. And stick some security cameras up. You can put them in trees. You can put them on rooftops. Yeah, exactly.
It's really on the south end of the bridge. The south end of the bridge is the one that has been most recently vandalized. The north end is more open. Traffic going over that area it really limits people being watched.
Well, if taxpayers are paying for the damage, I think they would rather pay for a security camera and try to catch these people and have them pay instead of it coming out of our tax dollars.
Craig did or staff did provide you with information on the table tonight. Working with Ottawa County is where we have our other security cameras that are placed around the city. Is this something that we want to direct staff to gather more information, more specific prices on different areas that we'd like cameras to be placed?
I think that we should get price on some more cameras. I do know that they are needed in the parks, especially around the restrooms. There's been a lot of vandalism in our restrooms. I do know that the Public Works has left the lights on West Spring Lake Road. They go off around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. There's only one BLP light on that road. But they have recently been leaving the lights on. Security cameras is one of my something I am very, very knowledgeable about. So, yeah, get some prices on some cameras.
Well, I would, because I'm, you know, the vandalism is just going to continue unless we take an active part to try to put a stop to it.
So you want to prioritize certain areas of the city to, and we'll get, or you want cameras in all parks to start with, and, or other places as well?
I think we should prioritize, our parks are definitely, we definitely need to get those in. My understanding from the DPW is there has been quite a bit of vandalism out in our parks, in our restrooms, especially.
We're talking Coast Guard, Sunnyside, William Ferry. What about the Michael?
Yeah.
That's a porta potty there. So probably every place has a restroom. William Ferry Park, Coast Guard Park, Fire Barn Park already has cameras. Sunnyside, do those three and get a price and see where we're at.
Something on the bridge.
Okay.
Restrooms are kept locked. Those are locked, so they're not open to the public as much as what these other ones are at the parks.
Yeah, maybe I'm confused now with a different restroom.
I don't think it needs
When
to
the
be at the
KLH
NFP at this time.
When KLH bathrooms are open is when security's out there. Isn't that correct, Fred? Right.
Or when there's an activity, a special event.
Correct. Correct.
Most of they confuse you. 3-4 years ago.
That was Sunnyside.
Come on, I remember
Sunnyside.
something about.
That was Sunnyside.
Sunnyside had a
I knew it was something.
Yeah, that was Sunnyside.
I thought it was Kids Link for some reason.
And then they put a light out there and whatever. Cameras work. They know cameras are out there. They tend to think twice.
Even putting signs up saying you're being videoed is a great deterrent.
Mhm. It's just gonna continue, so
Any
we
other
have to do
directions
something.
for staff regarding the cameras? Any other place you'd like to see them placed?
We haven't had any problem at City Hall, have we, Craig?
No.
So I think the restrooms probably be the main thing. Now, what time do they get locked up at night?
10 o'clock. Park's closed at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, enough. Thank you.
Public comment. Any additional public comments tonight? Nope. Hearing none. Reports. City manager?
No report?
Council members? I don't know. Where do I start? Councilmember Carl, you want me to start down there?
No
I'll start.
report.
No? No?
No report.
No KLH?
Nope, nothing.
All right.
Is there Fred?
Councilmember-
No, we're golden.
Golden, easy. Councilmember Toa?
No report.
Councilmember DeWitt?
I'm golden.
Councilmember Kennedy?
I attended a lot of the events for the Coast Guard. I thought they did a really good job this year. I think they ended everything at 11 o'clock, so I'm hoping that will take care of some of the problems they had last year. The events I attended were very well attended, and everybody was very well behaved. This is the Coast Guard picnic that Ferrysburg hosts every year. I did talk to 2 residents in there, and they're wondering, because now we're Tree City, next time we get trees next year, if we could put more in that area where this event is held to try to get a canopy for more shade. End of report.
More grant funding for that.
Yeah.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
I'm golden too, but I still got some stuff to say. I too attended some of the Coast Guard events during the festival. At the Coast Guard picnic, the commander of the sector field office was very appreciative of our efforts. so that it really makes them feel special, and it's a great opportunity. Last year it was new; he didn't know how to quite respond to it, but since then, the outpouring of appreciation for the Coast Guard has just been immense, and he also wanted me to let everybody. I even got thanked. I talked with the commissioners of the Canadian Coast Guard, and they were very amazed at the outpouring of love and appreciation for the Coast Guard, and this says a lot for our community. I got interviewed by Homeland Security Today magazine, so I'll be in their magazine sometime in the near future, and it's a.
Yes, the Coast Guard Community Picnic was pretty well attended. Had a lot of good positive feedback for that event. And the Coast Guard Dignitary Dinner, that was at the Trillium. A lot of people enjoyed that. The Coast Guard Grand Parade was also good, and that was packed downtown Grand Haven. Oh, and I will not be at the August 19th City Council meeting. End of report.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to repeat what others have said. The Coast Guard picnic, great success, very positive feedback from people that were attending, thanks to the Boy Scouts, DPW, the Rec Commission, especially for what they did, and also the staff for setting it up. I attended the 2020 census meeting along with with Craig and Debbie. That's something that we are working diligently when information starts coming through to put it out on the website, making and encouraging our residents to vote. I meant to not to vote, but to fill out the census, because it's very critical for our city, so everyone can be accounted for. So we're working with John Martin at the library, also setting up places there. I chair at 4 Points, so we're looking at 4 Points and just some of the other key areas. Also, just a reminder to council and also the watching audience, September 3rd is a Tuesday, and we will be having a council meeting. There's already information that we're compiling to the agenda. So it will be September 3rd. So just make sure you mark your calendars for that. End of report.
Motion adjourned.
So move.
Kathy, you want mine?
Wow, everybody's on Johnny on
Hey,
this
you gotta be
spot.
quick.
So you're creeping right up on us, isn't it?
I haven't filled mine out yet.
You want this, Debbie? That's the guy left it here.
Well, I wrote my name on
The
it.
90-year-old
Remember
dude.
to do it.
That would be nice.
The 90-year-old little
That would be a
dude.
bunch.
The little dude.
So I see your knees looking
There it is.
You've gotta
Party's
be
over,
thrilled.
Tim. Party's over. What are you gonna do with your Bonneville, baby?
You've
That's
gotta be
just sitting
thrilled.
there, growing weed.
The battery died.
So the latch is broke or something, so you can't get it open. Battery's toast.
It's gonna. Before when I brought it home, are you gonna?
I am going to be out there now. I talked to Lynn, think of this about, should we have
I had a 93 Bonneville that lasted. I got